Whitechapel in East London, the heart of one of Britain's multicultural communities. The area has a large Bangladeshi and Muslim population and is known affectionately as Banglatown. Many of those living here are from South Asia and have arranged marriages. Some want this, while others don't. Recent UK government research suggests that 3,000 young women each year are in forced marriages. To counter this, a new legal group, MAT, the Muslim Arbitration Tribunal, launched a report, Liberation from Forced Marriage, which calls for changes to counter this practice.
That is flourishing throughout the country amongst young people, professionals, and the student community that do not. There's a lot of cultures, traditions that have been established which are fed into the arranged marriage system, which are deemed to be acceptable, but are actually indirect force or coercion that's being applied to these young people.
MAT says while 300 cases of forced marriage are brought to the attention of authorities each year, evidence gathered from mosque and grassroots Muslim groups show it's the tip of the iceberg, especially for those involved with partners coming from overseas.
It's an overwhelmingly serious problem. We say it's over 70% of all foreign spouses, where foreign spouses are concerned, who are married to a British citizen.
They now want British citizens marrying foreign partners who believe they are in a forced marriage to come in front of a panel of Muslim elders and put their case forward.
We will endeavour to give a voice to that British citizen who will come forward and give a deposition and tell us the circumstances in which the marriage took place and help us decide whether it was entered into without any force or coercion. If we give a certificate that it was valid, that certificate can be presented to the entry clearance officer as proof that somebody independently has judged the evidence of the British citizen. If the certificate's not given, the entry clearance officer can draw inferences as they see fit.
They now want the government to take on board the report and their idea for a tribunal within the Muslim community.
We hope that the government will embrace parts of this proposal, if not all of it. They will work together with the community to come up with a global solution rather than solution in pockets, and it will effectively send out a global message to the community and start to deal with those incidents of forced marriages.
A key factor is the grassroots nature of this initiative, and getting community acceptance is seen as crucial in making the MAT proposals workable.
It's absolutely vital. There's no point us being superficial and sitting in Whitehall and just applying policies that are actually not going to be implemented in the community or are going to be received by the community with a suspicious view. We've got to look at it in a more broader way, and I think that this organisation can deliver that.
MAT's report and proposals are being put out to public consultation around the UK to gauge opinion and get feedback. It's supported by imams and leading lights in the Islamic community, who see it as a positive step in dealing with a contentious and complex issue.
The problem is, when we conduct a marriage, part of the marriage must be a free offer and a free acceptance to the proposal. If we don't have that, Islamically it's not a marriage. We can't tackle it on the marriage day, so we need a system whereby those people are actually going abroad to get married. We're confident and satisfied that that is not a coerced or a forced process.
This is a mechanism for young people to be able to actually come forward and have their issues resolved in a way which, for example, instead of going to the police where they may be hesitant, I think it's a really good opportunity for us to actually show the Muslim community is taking a proactive approach in dealing with this problem instead of waiting for, say, government organisation, the government initiatives to actually tell us this is perhaps the way that you should deal with your issues. I think the sensitivities involved in this particular issues regarding forced marriage is such that they have to be handled by people who understand the actual community, the perspective of Islamic law, and then deal with it in a way which people can amicably solve their problems, as opposed to taking a more sort of authoritarian approach where you actually accuse and label people as in you're guilty, you're not guilty, and so on, to bring people together as opposed to separate them.
there's no coercion. It's a clear case of, I'm very, very happy to marry into this family and marry this person, and I know the consequence of marrying abroad, the fact that sometimes our education might be different, our backgrounds might be different, but I'm very, very confident. I've met him, I've spoken to him, I've emailed him, and I think we're compatible. Those are the sort of things we need. If we hear these things, we are more confident that this marriage is actually a marriage of free wills and hasn't got any element of coercion or force in it.
This is a solution to a problem that's existed perhaps for 2 decades or so. The consequences of that problem and the ripples of that problem are coming to fruition right now. We're seeing the consequences of this right now. The government have attempted to deal with it by virtue of the passing of the bill last year. Though it addresses the problem, it doesn't satisfactorily deal with all the issues. MAT is a vehicle to cover up and plug the gaps that the bill sort of leaves.
Part of the process is establishing working groups and clarifying situation with the imams that speak on Fridays. Those messages on Fridays go to most of the Muslim population. So if imams can actually clarify that and basically emphasize that message, the community will take it on board.
It's a significant step because what it means is that A, we don't condone in any shape or form forced marriages. That's the first clear message. The second is that long term this is going to be a systemized way of actually dealing with this particular problem. And once people realise the MAT is fully established, it will actually become part and parcel of one of the services that the community provides for itself. And in a way, it's not just self-regulating. What it means is that the community is taking ownership of its own problems and saying, we can actually deal with our own issues ourselves.
You can only view this from within. You know, objectively speaking, you come and look at it from outside and think, well, it's just hot air, it's just speculative talk. But over the last 15 years, you know, a lot of my family members, perhaps the same age as myself, have gone through forced marriages. Some have been successful by virtue of their own characters, some haven't. So I know exactly how to detect the smoke, basically, and hopefully I can pick up on that, delve a bit more, and get to the bottom of it.
Governments sometimes work in the vacuum, academics sometimes work in the vacuum, practitioners can actually drive this thing forward, and grassroots work is absolutely essential. You can't just have legislation which everyone ignores. You've got to be actually in there, in the community, and trying to persuade them and have some position, some credibility in the community to actually persuade them to actually, change if they need to change.
It's important to get consultation because we want to make sure that people feel part of the process. We're not here to dictate to them, this is the solution that you have to follow. Because if people feel that something is being imposed upon them, A, they're going to get alienated, and B, they're going to think, well, we've had this before. The government's telling us we should do this, we should do that. I think once you actually open up to a community and actually bring them towards you in terms of have a collaboration, I think that's the most effective way of dealing with any particular issue.
You've got to take the bull by its horns. You've got to do this. So far everyone's been saying, well, the community's not done anything, and here we are, we've done something. There's obviously criticism. We'd like constructive criticism. Unconstructive is perhaps from those who don't do anything at all, who perhaps do the least. As Mr. Siddiqui says, it's not the only solution, but it's a viable and a very reasonable one.
I think it's a really good initiative that has a lot of strengths in it. I mean, it's going to go out to consultation. I think it's a solution that needs work, but I think long term it's going to be a very effective tool in actually dealing with this particular issue within the community.
At present, there are 2 million Muslims living in Britain, and that figure is expected to grow. With that rise, there's the potential for forced marriages to increase within the Muslim communities around the UK. To counter this, initiatives like the reports and proposals from the Muslim Arbitration Tribunal show how elders and community leaders are tackling the issue head-on. By working at grassroots level, they hope to ensure members of the Muslim community will realise forced marriages are totally unacceptable and have no place in Britain's modern multicultural society.
أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كل